I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under God was not part of that. That is years later.
Thank you, Mark. There are so many issues that Congressman West has spoken about, mostly that affect our community in not a good way. He has voted against getting rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He has voted against DOMA. He has voted against everything that stands good and right in our community. And he was planning to come to our community and speak, not to support our issues, but to speak against them. And a group of concerned citizens assembled and said, we will not stand for this. So an organization called Concerned Citizens, or Coalition for Fairness and Equality, was brought together. And today we have, what we see is the fruit of these efforts. And we're going to begin our program today with a person who has stood for years, who has spoken on behalf of our community, who's comes from a family who's legendary in being behind gay and lesbian movement and supporting issues here locally here in Wilton Manors of Broward County. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first guest, Mr. Stuart Milk. Stuart. It's so great to be here in Florida. I actually get to travel the world, oftentimes go to communities where we have people who speak of hatred, people who do not represent a community. Let me tell you that that Alan West actually has some comrades around the world. I came back from Hungary, and I actually am leaving tomorrow for Europe, but I've had to add Czechoslovakia on because the Prime Minister has decided that gay people should not be included and celebrated, and he doesn't believe that Prague should have a pride parade. And his message was very similar to someone who represents this community. His message, his actual words, this is the Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister in Czechoslovakia, said that I hate diversity. Guess who else said that?
Alan West.
Hates diversity, hates inclusion, said I hate inclusion. Didn't say I dislike inclusion, hate, it's a powerful word. You know what else he said? He believes that he is a tolerant person and that he's willing to tolerate his constituency. Who wants to be represented by someone who tolerates you? I often talk about being from Florida, and I talk about the message, the word tolerance is no longer relevant. We as a community, as lesbians and gay, bisexual, and all of our allies that are with us, don't talk about tolerance. We talk about inclusion. We talk about celebrating diversity. We know that a community is stronger when we have the full rainbow of colors, we have the full diversity of that community, and we celebrate everyone. Yeah! I spend some time, as many of us do, out by our pool or outside, and we have mosquitoes there, and we tolerate mosquitoes. We don't allow elected officials to tolerate us like mosquitoes. We want them to celebrate and include us, and guess what, Alan West? We have a message for you. If you can't celebrate and include this community, you're not going to be representing us in Washington, D.C. Bipartisan committee. In fact, we've got one of the chairmen of the Log Cabin Republicans from Miami-Dade County, Eddie, here. We have independents. We have Democrats. We have one message for Alan West. We're not going to tolerate hatred. We're not going to tolerate your attempt to divide our community, which is what he tried to do at this Wilton Manors business meeting. We're not going to tolerate our exclusion anymore.
not only have the right to serve in the military, we have the right to be represented in Congress by someone who celebrates all of their constituency, without exception, without qualification. Alan West, hear our message. You have your messages of hate, your words of hate are not going to be tolerated by us. And come the election day, you're going to be able to spend some time outside in your pool with the mosquitoes, and you can tolerate something. Now, in all fairness, let me throw out a couple of challenges for Mr. West. One challenge is he talks about business. Well, you want to be a leader in business, then go ahead and get behind the Employment Non-Discrimination Act and show businesses that we're not going to allow discrimination. The Fortune 500, the majority of them have already done it, Alan West. If they're not pro-business, who is? My uncle gave his life 35 years ago for that very city. I was a resident of this city when there was a closed-down Piggly Wiggly. And George Kessinger built a bar, and we built a community around it. This is what inclusion does. This is what celebrating diversity. There was no tolerating each other. We celebrated each other. And Alan West, you don't have to look far from your small business committee, subcommittee. You just need to look here in Wilton Manors and learn how to celebrate a community. Thank you all so much for coming.
Messages that we can try to say to Alan West. There's so many messages, so many statements. Just look at the placards here today. The things that he has said over the last several years in his political life that have been so offensive to who we are as human beings. So many spoken about, especially those that Stuart just outlined as well. Now today we also have the support from not just the Wilton Manors community and not just people within the gay and lesbian community, but our surrounding community supports us. Everyone believes in our message. Everyone does. And today we have a leader of the Democratic Party here who's the chair of the Broward County Democratic Executive Committee. I'd like to introduce Mr. Mitch Caesar. Mitch?
Last time I used milk cartons, I was 4 years old making egg creams in a candy store. So let's skip that. Let me first tell you that on behalf of the Democratic Party, we are here, we stand with you as we always have on the easy issues, on the tough issues. Frankly, this is an easy issue for us. If you look around the signs, it's very obvious. We have to judge candidates or office holders not only by their words, but by their deeds. If you look here, you see his words. We know of his deeds, but we see his words. You can't escape the venom, the angry hostility, not only towards this community, but to every community that is anything other than the narrow group he represents. And it is a narrow group. You know, the good news and the bad news is, the bad news is this isn't 2008, but the good news is this isn't 2010 either. 2012 is a new ballgame. And looking at these comments and using terms like despicable and so forth, you have to judge a person by his words. For him to attack this community is to be expected. That is a political calibration that is specific, narrow, and targeted. And he will win with his form of bigotry if this community doesn't vote, if all Democrats in Broward County don't vote. Because then his calibration, his calculation will have worked. Let me attack the gay and lesbian community and pick up more conservative voters by making them, in effect, the poster child politically. And the only way we stop that, the only way we shut this down, is to make sure that every community that believes in equality, that believes in fairness, that believes in equity, votes. If we don't vote, bad people win. We, on behalf of the Democratic Party, stand with you. We appreciate your efforts, not only today, but every day. But we have to turn out 2012. If we don't, we get the representation we deserve. And frankly, no one deserves Alan West.
He's been supportive of our parades and our meetings and our goals. And I thank you again for being here. I also would like to introduce someone who's also been an advocate in the gay community for so many years that I think his name is synonymous with advocacy. He's been an outspoken critic of those who have been intolerant of our community. He's even gone to the point where he's established a newspaper to get his message out, because sometimes the mainstream newspapers refuse to print the things that we need to say. So with no further introduction, here I introduce Mr. Norman Kent.
As I said last week in the editorial about this event, we did not form this group in order to censor Alan West. It was to censure Alan West. And he has earned richly that censure and condemnation, not just from the LGBT community, but from the mainstream population he represents. Because if lesbian and gay men want to serve in the military and put their lives at risk for our freedom, they should be applauded, acknowledged, and appreciated, not condemned. But does Alan West say that? What Alan West said was gays and lesbians in the military will bring down the military, just as he refreshed his recollection on gay marriage a few days ago, saying it's an oxymoron and will bring down society. You know, many of us heard the inspirational speech, looking at our ages, many of you did hear the inspirational speech of Martin Luther King on the Washington Monument decades ago, when he said he wants the day in a reckoning in America when men are judged not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. And Alan West, he's making speeches today saying the gay men and women, they can change their behavior. I can't change my skin color. That should tell each and every one of you how clueless Congressman West really is, in his own words. Because what the lesbian and gay community of Wilton Manors and all across this country is demonstrating in community after community is we can be judged not by what we do and who we are with in our bedrooms in the nighttime, but the quality of life we achieve in the daytime with our shirts and suits and shoes on. But that's not the world, according to Alan West. For him, like so many heterosexual people, he wants to judge you solely on your behavior instead of your breath, and that is unacceptable. So when this gentleman said he would come to this community with strings and say what he will talk about, what we have to let him know is that a congressman has to address the entire community and the entire Non-Discrimination Act was something else. The remarkable thing about the letter I got from his chief of staff on Friday is that he said, you can't expect the congressman to come to any street corner rally put together by a patchwork group at the last second. And then I went to YouTube, and I encourage you to do the same, and look back at Alan West making a speech as a candidate in a bar. And he said in his own words, you know what made America great?
People like me growing up in the inner cities of Atlanta being able to come to a corner bar and speak on behalf of my candidacy for Congress. Well, maybe that corner bar ought to be the alibi. The fact is, what we have here is a candidate of hypocrisy. You're the one who stands for the truth, and your presence here today and your testimony is a loud voice that this coalition for fairness and equality will continue to be heard over the next year to ensure that Allen West is only one thing, a distant memory of the past, a one-term congressman of the We have a wealth of speakers to address this issue,
They'll get that lifetime pension.
Welcome to Wilton Manors. How many of you have never been here before? Well, I wish I could say the same for Allen West. He is actually, I don't think, ever been in my city. And I've invited him to many times. I don't think he realizes that he represents us, but that's another story. I met with him in Washington, and I'm pleased to say, he was very gracious. He welcomed me into his chambers. And then he lied to me about his going on the CDBG funds. So, I don't know if I'm going to spend time about this.
Can't hear you.
There you go, Gary.
Sorry about that. But I don't know if I'm going to spend time talking to him about the issues that are important to Wilton Manors.
Oh, sorry, Mark. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see
It's
you.
going to mean anything. But we're relatively a small city. We only have about 13,000 people. But we have the interesting fortune of having probably two of the most diametrically opposed members of Congress. Yeah, by the way, please keep the street clear because it is open to traffic and we don't want anybody to get hurt. So we have obviously Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman-Schultz represents the bulk of Wilton Manors. $400,000 grant to build a new city hall that is right behind everybody here. So she's been a tried and true friend of ours for many, many years, not just on the LGBT issues, but also on city issues. And then we, of course, have Congressman Allen West, who represents two precincts.
Can't hear you over here.
So that's
What has he done?
well, as I said, he's lied to me on CDBG money. I kind of wanted him to come to our park because there's actually features in this park that were paid for and bought with that federal grant, and I wanted to show him that but for that federal money, we would not have had some of the recreational features in our park that we have. But he's never come here for me to show him that. So it's very difficult to have communications with your congressperson when they don't realize that they represent you or the things that and they don't show up or the things that are important to you. But in any event, how many people here, by the way, are members of the Wilton Manors Business Association? Dean is, I know Norm is, Michael, I know actually several, the city is, of course. And I just want to make everybody clear that the invitation to Congressman West to speak to the Business Association did not come from the members of the association. It came from Celeste Ellich, who is the current president of the association. Is Celeste here, by the way? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you realize it did not come from the membership of the association or from the city itself.
Thank you.
The city in no way was involved in a decision to invite anybody, for that matter, to speak to the business association members. Celeste did not consult with any member of the city. She didn't consult with the city manager, any of the commissioners. She made this decision unilaterally. So in no way, shape, or form was I or the city manager or any of the city staff responsible for the invitation. But I have, we're here really to celebrate us, to celebrate what we are looking for in terms of equality, to celebrate the diversity that makes Wilton Manors the great city that it is. So with that in mind, I have a little proclamation from the city of Wilton Manors to talk about equality and why we're all here. And by the way, some of these things that are, if they're actual quotes, I believe you. Trust me, I believe you. All right, anyway, this is a proclamation from the city of Wilton Manors. Whereas Wilton Manors is a diversely populated community, and many gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender citizens have chosen to call Wilton Manors their home and operate businesses, visit, and work in our city. And whereas an important and apparent reason that much of our community is comprised of LGBT residents is the sense of pride and camaraderie we have for one another as we all strive for tolerance and equality in all aspects of our lives. And whereas we are here today to celebrate each other, to rally together to bring peace and equality and recognition of our diversity to our neighbors. And whereas as we continuously present ourselves to the world as LGBT members of our community, we emanate the courage and tenacity needed to stand up for our equal rights and those of today's teenagers and young adults that struggle with their identity, as well as the many generations to come. And as the revered gay rights pioneer Harvey Milk once said, and I know his nephew is here, all young people, regardless of sexual orientation or identity, deserve a safe and supportive environment in which to achieve their full potential. And whereas, as Kermit reminded us, we should embrace our diversity. When green is all there is to be, it could make you wonder why, but wonder why. Wonder I am green, and it'll define it's beautiful, and I think that's the way I want to be. So therefore, as mayor of the city of Wilton Manors and as a proud member of the gay community, I urge all of our residents, businesses, and officials who represent us to recognize that all members of our community deserve to be treated equally, including but not limited to the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender community. Now therefore, I, Gary Resnick, mayor of the city of Wilton Manors, Florida, do hereby proclaim August 8th, 2011 as Equality Day in the city of Wilton Manors. Everybody in Wilton Manors.
No, we're not kidding.
Thank you, Mayor Resnick. We have a lot of people who have asked to speak, but I think it's important that we understand that this is just not a message that we want to convey to the members of this one city, this one community. It's not just one political party. It's important that we all understand that we are here to talk to everybody, and we wish everyone would talk with us. Today we have with us the president of the Log Cabin Republican Club, Eddie Sierra. He's asked to speak to us with a few words, and Eddie, please, step up to the mic.
Thank you all for being here. I want to thank the Coalition for Fairness and Equality for inviting us. And what I wanted to say is that the Republican Party does not stand behind tyranny and bigotry, which is what Alan Watts represents, okay? And we are here together as one community, okay? And we also want to make sure that everybody knows, okay, that we have not sponsored Alan Watts for this meeting today. Actually, the Tea Party of Broward County was the biggest donor that donated $1,000 to have Alan Watts here in Broward County, okay? We stand together in this community, okay? We represent equality, diversity, and that's what the Log Cabin Republicans stand behind. We do not support Alan Watts or Alan Watts' ideas as Republicans, okay? Let's come together as a community and let's bring fairness and equality to Washington, D.C. And come election time, let's turn Alan Watts' name.
In Dade County, who has been instrumental in getting passage of legislation that has been helpful to the gay and lesbian community, international immigrant legislation that only the Republican Party in the House could we have ever been able to accomplish those measures. And I want to thank Eddie personally for having been involved directly in those efforts. You know, so much has been said about gays in the military. Look at some of the quotes that came from Congressman West. Some of the negative, some of the truly hateful statements that he has made. Because of course he wouldn't come here today to make them, so we are here to tell the world what he has said. And today we also have a member, and actually the president, of American Veterans for Equal Rights. Marshall, where are you? Right over here. This gentleman, he's going to speak to us. Give us a few moments.
Americans have always obeyed and followed military code of conduct, as do gay and military men included serving right now. We had no special accommodations where we were in, and there won't be any need for any special behavioral accommodations needed in the future. Gay and lesbian military people are as moral and disciplined as the straight military people. We are all people first, not a class of people. When the military celebrates our inclusion, it will only make our military stronger. Remember the Navajo Indians and their contributions to the war effort of World War II. Without them, where would we be leading to the end of World War II? As people, we are strong, we are moral, we are disciplined. Just look at our allies with their inclusive armed forces. Thank you.
Exactly. As Senator Goldwater said, he doesn't care if gay or not, as long as they shoot straight. Another person who I'm very honored to say has joined our ranks today, a wonderful woman, Johara Saunders. She's the executive director and founder of the National Voices for Equality, Education, and Enlightenment. Johara, could you please step forward and share with us a few words about Congressman West?
I didn't really prepare a speech, but by looking at the signs here, my speech is here. This is gays can't change unless on Michael Jackson, and I can't change my color. I don't even know what that actually means. So I'm going to say, dear Alan West, you do not speak for me. I'm African American, and I'm a person of color too. So okay. And more importantly, why it's important for me to be here to speak to you today is as one of the openly gay or lesbian African American Jewish females in this community. You don't speak for my 17-year-old sister. You don't speak for my father who fought in Vietnam. You don't speak for my grandfather who fought in World War II. You don't speak for my family from Jackson, Mississippi, who fought to make sure that our civil rights are human rights. You don't speak for my family in Chicago who really fought during the riots. You don't speak for us. And I would hope that he doesn't speak for us in the next election. We want to make sure that that happens. Yeah. Yes. Right? And attacking other members of the community, like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or anyone else, or saying beating children with belts enabled us to raise men of character and integrity. Really? Exactly. Really? Okay. I have a few other statistics that actually says exactly the opposite of that. Okay? So as we're all here today, let's not just think about Alan West. It's about everyone else that preaches hate speech. Just because you have free speech does not mean that you have the right to preach hate speech, or that you have the right to in our community. Because one of the things, my sister was going to come here today and she thought, I'm so disgusted just reading the stuff that he's saying that I have a stomachache. And she actually stayed home because she was like, I came from Mississippi where it's a different environment. We may be poor, but damn it, we love each other. We like stick up for each other. And I come and I move to Wilton Manors, a place where, she's walked down these streets and told me, I can't believe white people and gay people are so nice. Oh my God, this is so cool. I'm going to tell all my friends to come here. And for her to get here and to actually see the love for herself, it really was something that did not sit right with her, that this guy would make such comments against the people that she sees as a part of her new extended gay family, even though she's not. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'd like to recognize Commissioner Thomas Green, Vice Mayor Thomas Green from the city of Wilton Manors is supportive of this effort. We've heard so much this afternoon. We've heard many people speak about Alan West and his words. We've heard about his history and his goals. But there is a way to make change. There is a way to say to one another and to say to the rest of the people in his district that we will not accept intolerance anymore. We will not accept the hatred and bigotry anymore. And we have a choice. In fact, one of the candidates running against him, Patrick Murphy. Patrick, are you here? Yeah! So, how do we conclude today? What have we learned this afternoon? What is it that we're here about? Certainly we now understand that there is an organization called Coalition for Fairness and Equality. It's a Facebook page, okay? You're going to start seeing more and more of that. Please go to our Facebook page and read about more of these events, more efforts. The goal is that in November of 2012, we're here to defeat Alan West. Does anybody agree with that? Say yes. We are here for today. That is what we need to spread the message to the rest of the world. That is why we have assembled to make people understand that right here on Wilton Drive, we have drawn the line in the sand. No more will we accept bigotry, no more will we accept hatred. We're talking about inclusion and acceptance, not just tolerance. So I say to each and every one of you, stay tuned, do more, and get involved. And on November 2012, if you live in this district, vote for Patrick Murphy or for Lois Franco, who are both running against Congressman West. Because enough already. It was a mistake. Everybody knows it was a mistake. They are destroying our Congress, and the Congress is destroying our country.
This teabag is wasted.
Exactly.
What we want to do is to keep this coalition growing. To keep the coalition growing, capture two things, what Dean just said. Register on Facebook, and we do have a website where you'll be able to register your name for emails. It's coffeeonline.org. So we can emerge from this gathering with more people at the next one. Register on Facebook, coffeeonline.org.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Everybody has a sign. Please give them back.